So buckle up and get ready because this is a long video, but it's worth it to cover everything you need to know. So I'm pouring in the starter, that is 160 grams. And then next I'll be pouring in the water. 720 grams of water, bread flour, 1,000 grams total of flour. That's actually whole wheat. Sea salt, 20 grams. And then I'm just mixing that in so that the salt and yeast don't touch. And this is the commercial yeast that is going to be 4 grams. And then I'm just kind of mixing it all in. Now, you might have seen that I had a whole wheat flour. You do not have to do a whole wheat flour. I did 800 grams of bread flour, just plain white organic bread flour, and then I did 200 grams of whole wheat flour. You can do all bread flour, white wheat. I just like to do a whole wheat because it gives a little bit of flavor, nuttiness, and you get a little bit of those extra benefits from the whole wheat, and it just looks nice. So right now I'm just kneading it by hand. You don't need anything. I'm trying to make sure everything in this recipe video is bare bones so you don't have to get a whole bunch of extra tools. Now this you're going to want to have. It is called a bowl scrape. They are, I think, at almost any store, but you can also get them on Amazon, like just a pack of bowl scrapes for like $4. Worth their weight in gold. You definitely should get one. It will make your life so much easier. So you don't have to do this. I just like to mix it up a little bit more on the table. I just like the way dough feels, so I don't mind this. It's going to be sticky and messy. That's okay. That's what the bowl scrape's for. You just scrape it off the table and then keep on kneading it and scraping it up off the table. You don't even need any extra flour or anything. Now, this is called a slap technique. It's actually the Bertinet technique where you're just kind of slapping it and stretching it kind of over itself. So I did that a couple times just to get it to come together. Now I am adding a little bit of olive oil to the bowl. And then I'm going to spread it around, and then I'm going to just put that dough back in there. It's still kind of a shaggy mess. I just wanted to get it to come together enough so that it was fully mixed through and homogeneous, all one dough. I just didn't want any dry patches, but it doesn't need to be a super smooth dough, because that's what we're going to be doing our stretch and folds for, to get that nice smooth consistency that we're looking for without a ton of work. So now we're going to cover it up and let it rest for 15 minutes. Okay, real quick, while you're waiting for those stretch and folds to happen, we're going to feed our starter that we just used pretty much all of it for. But this is all you need to feed your starter. You don't need a ton of starter, okay? So I'm going to scrape down the sides. So I have no idea where that just let off. So this is all I need to maintain my starter. So I'm going to just feed it real quick. And since this is just maintaining it, it's not to make a loaf because we're making a couple loaves right now. So I don't need my starter for a couple days. So I'm only going to do 25 and 25. Actually, I'm just going to do 20 and 20. Okay, let me mix this up real quick. Okay, now I'm going to put the flour in. Remember to zero out your scale before you put the next ingredient in. Otherwise, it's going to be all the weight. Okay, now mix it up. And you don't have to do this, but I personally recommend it. Transfer it to a new jar. You want to keep things clean. I know there are some people think that, oh, the dirtier, the more real it is. No, you go to any pastry chef and any like professional bread baker, it is clean in there, okay? It is not messy. They don't have crusty, nasty sourdough mother jars. None of that. That would never happen. That's disgusting. That's how you get mold and bacteria that can make somebody sick. So now you've got it in there, more than enough room for it to triple. And then I'm going to get a lid and I'm going to put my little rubber band where it's at right now. Now it's a little bit thicker of a starter, but that's okay because that means it'll take a little bit longer to rise. Okay, I'll put the lid on it and then you're good to go for feeding your starter. Okay, so I'm gonna put my lid on my jar. That's ready to go and it's fed. Now we are going to do our stretch and folds because that is ready. Okay, so it looks a little bit messy, but as you can see, as you start doing these stretch and folds, it will start to come together. So the first one, I like to do it as stretch and fold, and then the subsequent ones, you're going to see that they're actually what's called a coil fold. So you're going to lift it up, stretch it, and kind of tuck it underneath itself. And as you do this, it's going to get smoother and smoother, and we're only going to be doing 3 sets. Okay, so we did our last set of stretch and folds. So now what we're going to do is we're going to let this bulk ferment because it's pretty much at the right consistency that I care about. I don't need it to be like super fancy. This is just for loaves for my family. It's not the ones that I sell. So this is just a very simplified, easy, quick way of doing a sourdough loaf. Okay, so our bread is ready. I'll show you guys kind of what I go by. Since I'm going to let mine proof in the loaf pans overnight, because so normally when I make this, if I'm gonna let it proof overnight, I make it at like 10 o'clock at night because I'm just a night owl. But I made this way earlier. I started at like 3 or 2, so it's gonna be ready earlier. So what I do is I look to see if it jiggles. Like it jiggles. It's soft. You can also push into it and it doesn't bounce back immediately. Also, it pulls away from the side, so it's ready for me to bring out of the bowl. This looks super awkward with me looking at the video in order to see what's happening. Okay, so we're gonna take the dough out and we're gonna shape it. And this is about, I'd say probably 2 super big loaves or 3 smaller loaves. I'm gonna do 2 big loaves. Hold please. Okay, so I'll put a little bit of flour. Be gentle with it. Okay, then I'm gonna split it down the middle. Now, when I'm making this for the markets, I weigh it, and I generally like mine to weigh about 950 grams. I'm gonna weigh these real quick. Let me get my scale. Okay. Let's scooch these little guys right here. That's 868. Let's see how much this one weighs. Yeah, that's right. That's where it's missing. Let me take some of this off. Let's check it now. $9.28. $9.28. Perfect. So these will be nice sized loaves. Okay, and then I'm just going to kind of tuck it all. I actually put a little bit too much flour. And you're just pulling it towards you, tucking all those little ends in, and see all these little nice bubbles? Just tucking it towards you. And I'm going to show you how to do it in a loaf pan so that you can do it without having anything fancy. This is the pre-shaping, so we're just going to shape it into a boule, a round ball. And make sure you're pressing with your fingers and kind of like skimming it along and like sealing it down. So you're sealing all those edges and getting a nice tight top skin on top. Okay. I'm gonna clean this off. And I'm gonna put these right here. And I'm just gonna reuse my saran wrap on one and then grab another piece. And then these are gonna rest for about 15 minutes before we do our final shaping. I'll be back. Okay, so these have been resting for about 15-20 minutes. So they are ready for me to do the shaping on. So what I'm going to do is go with my one that I did first. And we're just gonna, now you might see people that like stretch it way out and make it super thin. You don't do that. You're degassing it and like getting rid of all the beautiful deliciousness that has been creating all these little bubbles. You wanna degas it a little bit, but be gentle with it. You don't need to be crazy. And honestly, you can do what's called the caddy clasp. It's super easy. You just go like that, and then you just do it again. See, I'm getting rid of some of the bubbles. And then this will be like for a round, like if you want to do it in a round bowl. I actually am doing mine in a sandwich loaf shape, so I'm gonna kind of tweak it a little bit. So I'm gonna show you on the next one what to do. So this, unlike proofing in a proofing basket, like a Banneton that you might have seen, those like big wicker baskets, you proof it upside down, because then you're placing it to open bake in your Dutch oven, or like open bake in your oven, or you're baking it in a Dutch oven, so the seam will come down once you're done proofing. But since I am actually going to be proofing it and letting it sit overnight in my pan, I'm going to put the seam side down. So I got a parchment paper. There's these nice little liners you can get, but you can also just use parchment paper that you have in your house, like cookie sheet paper, not waxed paper, okay? That will burn. And then I'm just taking these are the loaf pans I like because they're stainless steel. They're not non-stick, but that's what the parchment's for. And you place it in there, and then you're just gonna cover it so it can proof overnight and not get dried out, because you don't want to get dried out. And then this can go in your fridge, and this can proof overnight, and it can proof for up to like 3 days. But I wouldn't recommend that because it does have commercial yeast in it. This is something that I would proof and bake the next day, which we will do that tomorrow. Okay, so you can do the caddy clasp. There are more advanced, different, like, you know, shaping techniques, but you don't need to do those. This is just a loaf of bread for yourself. You just kind of roll it up, and then just like when you were tucking and shaping the boule, you're just pressing against the table and pressing your hands against that dough. And you want to pinch those ends in. And then we're gonna take it, and this is how you know it's not overproofed, because it's not like sticking so much that it's like ripping the dough or ruining it. Where's the seam at? And then if you have any like huge bubbles, you can just kind of pop them, because this isn't focaccia. You don't want huge gas bubbles. Okay, now you might have one of these kinds of pans. I grabbed it to show you. This pan will work perfectly fine. I just don't use non-stick anymore in my house. So I use these stainless steel ones. So I'm gonna put this in my little parchment and then tuck it in here. And you can spray your pan if you want to. I don't. It sticks a tiny bit right here at the top edges once it proofs. I just carefully like kind of pull it off once I bake it. And I'm okay with that because a lot of those sprays have soy lecithin and stuff like that in it, and I'm just not a huge fan. You know, there's a little bit of not perfect things, like I'm using plastic wrap, right? Like, but I try and mitigate it as much as possible. And I do have clients and customers that are allergic to soy, so I try to avoid any soy in any of my stuff. And that's just gone over to now in what I make for my family. Okay, so we've got our 2 loaves, and these are gonna go in the fridge, and then we're gonna bake them tomorrow. So I will do a video on that. I had planned on doing the shaping and everything tomorrow morning, but then I realized I made these way early, so I could do it tonight. So I will see you tomorrow morning, and we'll bake these. But actually, I just made a loaf of sourdough, so I'm gonna show you kind of what it looks like once it's baked. Because my family's already been eating these. So I made sourdough. This is the thing about sourdough, is you kind of bake and have other dough going so that you always have fresh bread. But I made this. Let's cut it. I made this, baked it yesterday. Now this one doesn't have any commercial use in it. This is 100% sourdough. And so it doesn't have massive, huge holes in it like you might see. I purposely have a little bit lower hydration, and when I'm shaping, I don't want huge holes, because for my kids with peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, it's actually super annoying to have big holes. They look beautiful and lacy, and there's a lovely flavor to it and everything, but for my family, it just doesn't work, and that's okay. Make the bread that will work for your family. It doesn't need to look like it's from, you know, La Bernardine or anything like that. Like, it's just, everybody has their own way of things that they like, and that's why I like to use my hybrid sourdough, because I like the fluffiness of a yeast raised dough, but I also want the benefits of the sourdough. So it's the best of both worlds. I'm gonna toast this and eat this myself. Okay, now I've got to finish making wontons and get these in the fridge. So I will see you guys tomorrow. Okay, love you, bye.